The old Greeks imagined that the winds had their own keeper. They called him Aeolus, a guardian of invisible forces. When the air began to move across the stretched strings, they called it the voice of Aeolus. Early Aeolian harps were placed in windows, left in gardens, hung in monasteries. They sang only when nature itself decided to sing. The wind harp was never regarded as a primitive instrument. It has to be precisely made if you want to be played by the wind. And it revealed something essential, that music is not always produced. Sometimes it is revealed. The Romantic poets believed that the nature is alive and inhabited by spirits, and that our mind is deeply connected to nature. They regarded our imagination as creative and divine, so the wind harp became a metaphor for the poet's imagination. When they listened to it at night, they believed the cosmos was speaking. Let's hear a passage from the famous poem The Aeolian Harp of Samuel Taylor Coleridge.
And what if all of animated nature be but organic harps, diversely framed, that tremble into thought as o'er them sweeps, plastic and vast, one intellectual breeze, at once the soul of each and God of all.
That was one of my first prototypes that I made in 2019. I named it Pneumaphone. In Latin, pneuma means breath and wind as well. But in ancient philosophical traditions, pneuma means spirit, soul, and the vital life force that permeates all living beings. When I began building wind harps, I did not want to reproduce history. I wanted to build a sculpture that responds to nature in my own way. So I started to observe, to listen, and to experiment. Learning by doing, trial and error. Slowly, sometimes clumsily, but with unstoppable determination. My hand slowly became familiar with simple hand tools. The gentle smell of wood fills my workshop. Mistakes become my unforgiving teachers. They taught me step by step about the tension of the strings and the threshold of vibration, about the design of resonance chambers to amplify what is barely there. Each element serves one purpose: to make the invisible audible. Wind does not push a string randomly. As airflow past it, small vortices form, spirals of pressure. They alternate side, left, right, hundreds, even thousands of times per second. Then a rhythm appears, and the strings begin to oscillate. Not because they are struck, but because they are invited. The harp does not impose sound. It collaborates with the air and enters into a dialogue with nature through the resonance. Resonance is not a force, it's an agreement. The string agrees with the wind on the same frequency. And in that agreement, music appears. Complexity unfolds from a simple relationship between the wind, the strings, and the resonator. Harmonics rise naturally. Overtones shimmer above the fundamental. Although it is physical, it is mystical as well. The harp does not choose notes, the environment chooses them. Temperature changes tuning, wind speed defines tones, landscape shares airflow. Each location writes its own composition. No piece is ever repeated. Authorship belongs to God. Aeolus. When I was 16, I started playing drums in a punk rock band. Since then, Music has never left my life. Like countless teenagers around the world, I was captivated by the ecstatic energy of the rhythm and the raw power of distorted guitars. Playing the drums gave me a feeling of strength unlike anything I have ever experienced. When I play drums, I'm the engine providing band with the power. In 1997, almost 3 decades ago, I founded Destroy Collective, an urban tribe of percussionists performing on instruments we built ourselves from discarded oil barrels, machine parts salvaged from scrapyards, and heavy industrial tools. We transformed the remnants of the mechanical world into musical instruments. My motto was, if you don't dare to dance with the noise, sooner or later, the noise will drive you mad. For many years I believed that music was something we created through effort, through movement, intention and control. We played louder, faster, harder. We shaped sound with our own bodies. Then I encountered Windharps, and it revealed to me a completely different dimension of music. Here there is no performer forcing sound into existence. The instrument just waits for the wind to blow. Music appears only when the invisible world decides to speak through it. Slowly, my musical sensibility changed direction. It was no longer about impact, but about resonance. No longer producing sound, but about making it to happen. The drum taught me how to evoke energy through rhythm. The wind harp taught me how to surrender to music through resonance. The drum belongs to the earth, and the wind harp belongs to the sky. Rhythm speaks through force, resonance through patience. One celebrates the heartbeat, the other reveals the breath. They are in dialogue between action and stillness, between human intention and the hidden intelligence of nature. I often think of them as a brother and sister. Brother rhythm, sister resonance. Perhaps every musician begins by learning how to make sound. But sooner or later, the real journey begins when we learn how to listen. We live in a time of relentless, ever-increasing production. Music does not need us anymore to be produced, only to be listened to. Who cares about the true expression of ourselves? The system needs us just as consumers. But the wind harp refuses this logic. It waits in silence, sometimes for hours, even days, and then suddenly a light breeze appears. Fragile, uncertain, unpredictable. The wind harp awakens, then responds, and the wind starts to sing. To build such an instrument is to accept a loss of authority. You cannot command it. You cannot schedule inspiration. You cannot monetize the breeze. You can only build a mechanical structure, wait for the wind, and trust that the song of Aeolus will appear. The wind harp teaches us forgotten discipline, listening without control, presence without intervention, participation without dominance. It decentralizes humanity and brings things back to balance. For the human ear, nature has always been an instrument. When the air moves through its strings, the wind harp adds new sounds to the vocabulary of nature. The world never became silent. It is we who are becoming louder and louder, and who have forgotten how to hear it. The wind harp is not an invention. It is a reminder that music does not always have to be produced and played by us. Sometimes it may come from the strings meeting the breath of nature. The wind is still there. It never stopped. Only we forgot how to listen. So stop from time to time for a while, listen, and let the wind sing for you. And if you would like to welcome the song of Aeolus into your own garden or place of contemplation, you're invited to visit my website and explore my collection of Pneumaphone Windharps.